Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today, we are going to focus on one of the most important components of supporting our multilingual learners: intentional, evidence-based vocabulary instruction. As educators, we know that vocabulary is the foundation for reading, writing, speaking, and content learning. When students don't understand the language of instruction, it becomes much more difficult for them to demonstrate what they know. Today's presentation focuses on practical strategies that we can begin using in our own classrooms to strengthen vocabulary instruction across the school. Let's begin by looking at what we hope you'll take away from today's professional learning. By the end of today's session, our goal is that everyone will be able to accomplish three things. First, you can recognize the need for stronger and more consistent vocabulary instruction for our multilingual learners. Second, you'll identify several research-based vocabulary strategies that can be implemented in your classroom immediately. These strategies come directly from current research and are designed to support students across different proficiency levels. Third, we will work together to build a shared understanding of vocabulary instruction so that students experience consistent expectations across classrooms and grade levels. When we're all using common practices, students receive the repeated support they need to develop academic language. Although vocabulary is essential for academic success, research shows that it often isn't taught systematically. Instead, students are expected to pick up new words through reading, classroom discussions, or exposure alone. For multilingual learners, however, incidental learning is often not enough. They benefit from direct instruction, multiple exposures to new words, and opportunities to actively use vocabulary in meaningful ways. Without these supports, students may struggle to fully access grade-level content, even when they understand the underlying concepts. This highlights why strengthening vocabulary instruction needs to be a school-wide priority. I wanted to make sure this professional development wasn't based solely on research. We also wanted it to reflect the experiences of teachers in this building. Many teachers shared that they understand the importance of vocabulary instruction, but often struggle with limited time, limited resources, or uncertainty about which strategies are most effective. Others expressed wanting practical approaches that fit naturally into their daily instruction rather than adding something completely new. These responses helped shape today's recommendations because our goal is to provide strategies that are both research-based and realistic to implement. Vocabulary instruction isn't simply about teaching definitions. It's about giving students access to learning. Academic vocabulary affects reading comprehension, writing, classroom discussions, and performance across every content area. When multilingual learners develop stronger vocabularies, they are better able to participate in lessons, understand complex texts, and communicate their thinking. This is why consistent vocabulary instruction across classrooms is so important. When every teacher intentionally supports vocabulary development, students receive repeated opportunities to learn, practice, and apply academic language throughout the school day. The good news is that research provides us with several effective strategies that we can begin using immediately. The first category of strategies uses technologies to increase students' opportunities to interact with new vocabulary. Interactive digital tools such as vocabulary apps, blogs, and online discussion platforms allow students to practice vocabulary in engaging ways. Rather than simply memorizing definitions, students are using words through games, conversations, and collaborative activities. Research shows that this repeated exposure and authentic use helps strengthen vocabulary learning and increases student motivation. Another strategy is using caption videos and multimedia instruction. When students hear a word, see it written in captions, and watch it used in context at the same time, they're engaging multiple parts of their brain. This makes vocabulary more meaningful and easier to remember while providing valuable language input in academic situations. The important takeaway is that technology isn't replacing instruction, it's providing additional opportunities for students to practice and apply new vocabulary. When students already understand the key vocabulary, they can spend more of their mental energy learning the content instead of trying to decode unfamiliar words. This is especially helpful for multilingual learners because it reduces cognitive overload. So one of the most effective strategies is pre-teaching vocabulary before students begin a new lesson or unit. Another research-supported strategy is teaching morphological awareness. When students learn common prefixes, suffixes, and root words, they develop tools for figuring out unfamiliar vocabulary independently. Instead of memorizing one word at a time, they begin recognizing patterns that unlock the meaning of new words. Pronunciation and speaking practices are essential because vocabulary isn't truly learned until students can confidently use it themselves. Providing structured opportunities to pronounce new words, use them in discussion, and practice academic conversation helps strengthen both vocabulary knowledge and oral language development. Another engaging strategy is total physical response, or TPR. TPR connects movement with language learning. Students perform actions while learning new vocabulary, creating another pathway for remembering words. This strategy is particularly beneficial for beginning English language learners because movement helps make abstract vocabulary more concrete and memorable. One strategy that we can use in the first language strategies is multimedia instruction combined with strategic code switching. Using visuals, audio, video, and occasionally students' first language helps build understanding while maintaining English language development. Students are able to connect their new English vocabulary to concepts they already understand. Another effective practice is teaching cognates. Many English words share similar spellings and meanings with words in other languages, particularly Spanish. Helping students recognize these similarities allows them to build vocabulary more efficiently because they're connecting new learning to existing knowledge. Word walls are simple but a powerful strategy. When important vocabulary remains visible throughout a unit, students can continuously refer to it during reading, writing, and classroom discussions. This repeated exposure reinforces learning and encourages students to incorporate academic vocabulary into their own language. Bilingual dictionaries and first language supports are another valuable resource. Allow students to access their home language while learning English strengthens comprehension, builds confidence, and helps students retain new vocabulary. Research consistently shows that using students' first language actually supports English vocabulary development rather than interfering with it. Knowing effective strategies is only the first step. The next step is making sure we implement them consistently across our school. Our implementation will begin with our professional development on August 31st. Teachers will first complete a vocabulary questionnaire so we can better understand current practices and identify areas for growth. We'll then participate in this presentation, followed by vocabulary learning stations, where you'll have the opportunity to experience these strategies firsthand and discuss how they might fit into your own classrooms. Afterward, you'll advise upcoming lesson plans by intentionally incorporating vocabulary instruction, and our principal will close the session by reinforcing our school's commitment to this initiative. However, this won't be a one-day event. We'll continue supporting one another through monthly meetings and weekly check-ins, where we'll discuss what's working, share successful strategies, introduce additional ideas from the research, and review lesson plans together. Our goal is to create consistent vocabulary instruction across classrooms so that every multilingual learner has access to the same high-quality supports. To wrap up today's presentation, focused on three main ideas. First, we recognize the need for stronger and more consistent vocabulary instruction for multilingual learners. Second, we explored research-based strategies, including technology, supported learning, explicit instruction, and first language supports that help students develop academic vocabulary. Finally, we discussed how we'll work together as a school to implement these strategies consistently through professional learning and ongoing collaboration. When vocabulary instruction becomes intentional, consistent, and shared across classrooms, multilingual learners gain more than new words. They gain greater access to academic content, increased confidence, and more opportunities to succeed. Thank you for your time and participation today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.